Okay, we are going to take a look at today at the Isaac Miller Farm, which was a part of Jeb Stuart's Cavalry Division on July 3rd of 1863. And here we stand at the barn of the Isaac Miller Farm, which was built around the year of 1832. And we're going to talk a little bit today about the battle that raged on around this farm and house, and a little bit about the property. And again, the barn here was built in the year 1832. And as we move over toward the house, we want to talk a little bit about what happened here on July 3rd of 1863. Men from Jeb Stuart and Wade and Hampton's divisions moved through this farm, primarily the 1st and 2nd South Carolina Infantry, or Cavalry, rather. And this is the house. This is the house. On the right side, the house was built in the year 1771. And then the addition on the left was built in 1842. And of course, in 1989, a new addition was built rather on the front, which you can see to the left of my screen. And again, on July 3rd of 1863, cavalry troops from Stuart, Wade, and Hampton, primarily the 1st and 2nd South Carolina Cavalry, passed right through this farm and over toward the Rummel Farm on the battle of what we would later to be known as East Cavalry Battlefield. Now, a woman, Sarah B. King, who lived nearby, remembered and wrote, "We stayed in the cellar while a skirmish fight was going on. There was a man named Smith who was brought up to this house, injured, and he would later be taken to the house in town of Polyculp, where he would later die." Now, this Polyculp is a descendant of the famous Culp family, and her house was up on York Street and still stands there today. Now, this area of the battlefield was one of the largest cavalry fights of the American Civil War. And as we look here behind the original 1771 and 1842 structures, you can imagine Confederate cavalry troops from Stuart, Wade, and Hampton's division passing between this house and the barn on July 3rd of 1863. And I did a great video series called East Cavalry Battlefield, which you'll want to go back and look as to the actions of the actual battle around here. But again, to the left side would have been where we're looking at now, Fitz Lee's divisions. And to the right of the house and my camera would have been John R. Chambliss and his troops. Now, a little bit about the barn. The barn is actually one of the oldest still standing barns in Gettysburg, built in the year of 1832. And the owners of this property, by the way, this is private property. This is not a part of the actual battlefield. I have been given permission and have been felt very welcome by the owners here on the property. So this isn't a property where you just walk around. It is private property, and I have received permission. So this is an exclusive video that we're doing here on Gettysburg Historic Walking Tours. And a little bit of a secret of the battlefield as well. The property owner, about 25 years ago, had actually found a road, original road that was used during the Civil War by Confederate cavalry troops, which goes behind the woods here in the barn and back across a little tiny stone bridge. And today they use it They built a little structure back there and used the natural fortifications of the rocks to have like family get-togethers and barbecues. But this little tiny stone bridge takes back to, over a water source, actually, which today feeds Lake Heritage. And we're going to go ahead right now and take a walk through that pathway. And again, this is one of the original roads in Gettysburg that was located. This road probably, though no date can be assuredly put to it, probably goes back into the late 1700s. And it connected, the Susquehanna Trail, which today is Route 30, which, is a transcontinental highway. It connected Route 30 toward the Bonnetown Pike, which today is Bonneville. And of course, this is a really neat feature of this property, and not many people who've even visited the Isaac Miller farm even know about it. But as we continue our walk back here, you're going to see this little tiny stone bridge that I'm talking about. And this is an amazing spot here on July 3rd, 1863, because as you know, the battle is nearing its end. Pickett's charge is happening. Here are Confederate cavalry trying to break through on the east side of the town to get and come behind the Union lines. Now, here we are at the little stone bridge you can see there right in front of us with the little creek going underneath of it. And, this was wooded years ago, and this guy who owns the property comes back here and sees this and, cut a nice little path again, brought the bridge back. And again, today, if you follow this waterway, it actually is what feeds the lake at Lake Heritage, Lake Heritage, Gettysburg, a large gated development. And again, the family uses this area today. Back here you see these little outcroppings of boulders. They actually have a little barbecue pit there, and they have family get-togethers. But again, July 3rd, 1863, Union and Confederate cavalry clash east of the town of Gettysburg. This is happening between 2 and 4 p.m. on July 3rd, 1863. And these Confederate troops are trying to break this Union line and then come up behind the Union troops at the high water mark, which was a part of General Lee's plan for July 3rd, 1863. Of course, these troops never defeated the Union troops that were under George Armstrong Custer, and because of that, didn't get behind the Union lines. And of course, the Union lines held back General E. Lee's infantry lines during the famous assault known as Pickett's Charge or Longstreet's Assault. But then again, this beautiful farm, you can imagine now as we walk back toward the barn, with behind our backs would have been the troops under Fitz Lee. In front of us, directly where the barn is, the 1st and 2nd South Carolina crossed and moved toward what would be our left, toward the Rummel farm. And then in the distance further would have been the troops under John R. Chambliss, the 10th Virginia, the 1st Virginia, and they would have moved all the way into the Rummel farm, which was another video that we did here on Gettysburg Historic Walking Tour. So again, I hope you have enjoyed your tour of the Isaac Miller farm here. The house, 1771, edition 1842, another edition 1989, and the barn from 1832. And I do want to thank the owners for their permission to do this tour on their private property. This has been another video, the Isaac Miller Farm, with your historian, Frank P. Marone, Jr.